Over 7 million children and over 23 million adults in the United States are diagnosed with ADHD, with estimates suggesting that up to 50% of individuals are not receiving proper evaluation and treatment. Joining me now with advice and guidance on how to help parents, educators, and others bring out the best in people with ADHD is Dr. Edward Hallowell, and executive producer of The Disruptors, the first comprehensive documentary on ADHD, Nancy Armstrong. First question for Dr. Hallowell. How can you shed some light on the prevalence of ADHD in both children and adults in America?
Well, the usual figure we're given is 5% of the population, but that's too low because the diagnosis, in order to satisfy the DSM definition, has to include impairment, and that limits all the people who are doing really well who have ADD, which is an awful lot of people. Unless you define impairment as underachieving, which is how I define it. You can be underachieving and be top of your class. You can be underachieving and be captain of the team or lead in the play. Underachieving, it just means you're not doing as well as you could, which to me is impairment. But because of that different definition, the figures are skewed, I think, spuriously low. It's better than it was 50 years ago, where people hadn't even heard of the condition, but we still need to go further to expand it to include the strengths, which is absent now in most people's thinking.
Dr. Hallowell, how has the understanding of ADHD evolved over the years? What are the challenges that still exist today?
Oh my gosh, it's such a wonderful good news and horrible bad news. The good news is we're not stuck in the moral model, namely all of this is voluntary. It's all caused by lack of discipline, not wanting to do well, even possession by the devil. You know, so all these superstitious moral models that basically condemned the person and sometimes their parents as well. So now we're working under a medical model which says, no, this is genetic, this is biologically based. This has nothing to do with how hard you're trying. Trying hard always helps anything. But this is not caused by lack of effort. It's caused by a genetically inherited difference in how you think, act, and feel. And we have ways of modifying that, which is really good news. The unfortunate part is most people still don't know about that. Even pediatricians don't know about that. School teachers, by and large, don't know about that. Most people think the treatment is medication, period. Well, number one, medication does not always work. And number two, it's never enough to just give medication. You need to also give counseling about how do you apportion your time? What do you invest your mental powers into? And then how are you feeling about life in general? You know, so the combination of coaching and medication is what we need to be doing, and unfortunately, we're not doing that. Most schools still don't get it, but they're on their way. I mean, that's one reason Nancy made this documentary.
Nancy, can you tell us what inspired you to create the film The Disruptors and newly released PSA, The Upside of ADHD?
Well, I raised 3 children with ADHD, and I found out pretty quickly that this is a deeply misunderstood diagnosis. So what we wanted to do with the film and the PSA was to cut through the confusion and the misinformation and the pervasive myths around ADHD by democratizing the best information from the top experts in the field. We want parents and children to feel liberated to know that they're not alone and that there is an upside to ADHD. So this is fundamentally reframing this from a deficit disorder model to a brain type or a trait that comes with some challenges that do need to be managed, but also comes with some pretty impressive and significant strengths.
And Nancy, how can we remove the stigma of ADHD?
Well, ADHD is a public health issue, but it's also the greatest engine for creativity in the world. So we need to educate not only parents and children, but all of society to know that these are creative, imaginative people that will take a little more support to get them on their way to adulthood. Too often they are mistreated and don't get the support they need and are demoralized by the time they get to high school. When in fact, if we can get them through to adulthood intact, they oftentimes become our innovators, our entrepreneurs, our award-winning artists, our Olympic athletes. So it's imperative for us as a society to finally recognize that.
A question for Dr. Hallowell. How informed are our school educators to effectively deal with children with ADHD?
Well, our schools are very well intentioned, but they're not very well informed, particularly when it comes to ADHD. You know, God bless teachers, they're so important, but they're not up to speed usually on this condition, and it's too bad because they could make such a difference for good, instead of being an agent of holding kids back in terms of what they learn and how they feel about life and about themselves and about the acquisition of knowledge. All of that, if a teacher doesn't understand what ADHD truly is, that teacher is not going to help that child and often impede that child. So we really need to focus more of our education efforts on schools, on teachers, as well as parents and even pediatricians. Once you get it, and it's not that hard to get it, then you'll understand how to develop the talents and strengths and not just focus on the negative, sending out the message that you're boring, you're stupid, you're impaired. And instead, you send out the message that you have it in you to become an astronaut. You have it in you to become a Nobel Prize winner. You have it in you to become a self-made billionaire. Any of these markers of mega success are in you if your gift gets identified and unwrapped.
And Nancy, based on your own experience and research, what practical advice can you offer parents and educators to help them recognize the traits accurately and create a nurturing environment?
Well, if you have a child who's struggling with things like focus, organization, behavioral and emotional impulsivity, maybe coupled with anxiety, then it's probably time to seek an evaluation and, if appropriate, a treatment plan, and those vary individually. But it's so important to foster a connection between the teacher and the student. Kids with ADHD need positive connections. So getting a teacher on board, getting a 504 plan, which is an individualized learning plan that they're legally entitled to, and then finding tutors and coaches that can help with things like routines and organizations. But for parents, really don't sit back. You have to be actively involved in your child's education, particularly in the middle school years when it can get really difficult.
All right. Thank you to you both.
Thank you so much.